right. So live stream it on YouTube. Let's see here if we get the chat going. Pretty sure that it is live. We're going live on YouTube. I pressed the button. Let's see if it's popping up. It's still kind of trying to fire up. It looks like there. All right, we're live. Hey, all right. Hopefully this is working. If not, whatever. We'll have to just do it again. But whatever the case is, we're live on YouTube with Chef Val, and we wanted to go live together because I was really curious. We did the live together yesterday, you and I, Val, and I was really curious to be able to kind of get to know a little bit more about your background and what got you into the lifestyle that you're into. Um, so yeah, and I've got a few questions lined up here, but maybe if you want to just start, you can just start by introducing yourself and give us just a little bit of your background, and we can kind of dig into this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate, for setting this up and interviewing me since I interviewed you yesterday. So I am Chef Valerie Wilson, and I live in the beautiful state of Michigan, where I was
Mm.
born and raised. And this is what I do full time. I teach cooking classes. I cook for people, personal chef, and I also work with people one on one, like counseling sessions, healing the body with food. I have been in the food industry since I was 17 years old. So I kind of love food. And it's a blessing to be able to do what I love for a living. And so I do have a background in food, even before I discovered healthy way of living and everything. Let's see, my first job was at a delicatessen where we made pizzas and subs and things like that. I got a job there at 17, and by the age of 18, I was the manager of the delicatessen. They made me manager. I loved that job. That was like one of my first jobs, and I was 18. I was in charge of everything, and we made the best pizzas. We made the dough from scratch, we made the sauce from scratch, and homemade bread, as we talked about, is my weakness and everything. So, and then from there, when I left that job, I got a job as an assistant manager, excuse me, at a French bakery and restaurant. So I was with croissants and we did homemade bread. We made big batches of baguettes and bread. And so I have a big background in making bread too, which I adore. And that I liked that job too, not as much as the deli, but again, I was with food. And then I did a weird thing where I got out of the food industry and I had a house cleaning business for like 4 or 5 years. And it was while I was cleaning the houses that, you know, I started to realize that our food was highly refined and processed and it was terrible and it was unhealthy. I mean, this knowledge was just coming to me, and I didn't know anything about health at that time. But I am only 5'1". I'm a very short person, and I was kind of gaining weight. Working at that French bakery didn't help either, with all that delicious croissants. But anyways, guess what? I went on the Atkins diet. What?
Mm.
I did. I went on the Atkins diet, all that high protein meat. That was before I knew what I was doing. I didn't know anything about really healthy eating. I did lose weight, but fast forward later on, when I did a hair analysis, I discovered that I weakened my kidneys
Mm.
by being on that high protein diet, which is one of the side effects that people don't realize, because
Mm.
that's something that people are really into. So, yeah, I was going down this trail and I knew that food was, the highly refined processed food was no good. And that's when I discovered macrobiotics, which I briefly told Nate that story yesterday. Do you want me to go into that story again?
I would love it.
Okay, so as a little girl, I used to watch TV and I had a crush on the actor Dirk Benedict. Now, some people will know him from the 80s. He was Face on the TV show The A Team, but I had a crush on him because he was Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is such a cool show, the whole space thing. But and so I'm a little girl and I'm watching him on TV. And then I saw him interviewed on a Mike Douglas show. And he said he had cancer. And he said he healed himself from cancer using food. But that's kind of all he said. He said he wrote a book about it. And I remembered that. I remembered that he wrote a book and I wanted to read his book. So then when I got older in my my late teens, early 20s, I would go into bookstores And I would ask the people behind the counter if they knew anything. Can I get Dirk Benedict's book? Nobody knew what I was talking about. And I found out later from hearing, Dirk talk later that the original publisher published the book and then they got rid of it because it was too controversial. You couldn't talk about curing yourself from cancer with food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he also got blacklisted from, being an actor and everything. And he was told, you can't talk about that. So he had to shut up. He couldn't talk about it for years and years and years. Now, they did republish his book. Thank God. That's how I found it. So I'm, in my journey and everything, I'd already started to think that highly refined food wasn't good for you. And, the Atkins diet, I was kind of at my wit's end where I was like eating lots of salads and I didn't know what else to eat. And then I went into a health food store. A friend of mine worked at a health food store, and there on the bookshelf was the book that I had been looking for years, Confessions of a Kamikaze Cowboy by Dirk Benedict. I like to say that like the sunshine shined in and lit up the book and the angels like sang like, oh, So I was so excited. My friend at the health food store thought I was crazy because I was so excited about this book. I'd been looking for it for years. And so this is Dirk Benedict's journey about healing himself from prostate cancer. And he changed his diet and he went macrobiotic. I had never heard of macrobiotic. I didn't know what it was. But the book also talks about the energy of the food, the balancing of yin and yang. And it talks about how highly refined processed food is terrible for you. And Dirk Benedict was on a very high meat diet when he got the prostate cancer. He talks about that. And he talks about his healing journey. And I'm like, this completely makes sense. This is the way we're supposed to be living. We're supposed to be living, eating food from nature, eating the way our ancestors did. This just made complete sense to me. I was also drawn to the whole idea of energy because that just completely made sense to me. And I was quite young. And now, years later and everything, I'm very intuitive. I feel energy and everything. So that was like the start of my journey to realize what was going on. And I have show and tell. So Dirk Benedict came to Michigan in 1994, and I got to meet him. And this was the lecture he gave. That's a picture of me with him. And the lecture, he talked all about his cancer journey. Was awesome. And this was before, if you wanted to meet a famous person, you had to pay a lot of money. I looked at the ticket on here. I paid $15 to go to the lecture, and I got to meet him. I got my picture taken with him, and I got his autograph. Nowadays, if you go to Comic-Con, because he came to Comic-Con a couple years ago here in Michigan, and I thought, oh, I want to go meet him again. Ooh, such a steep price. You got to pay to get in there, and then you have to pay to stand in line to meet him again. So it was such a blessing years ago. But here's his autograph. Dear Valerie, at long last, we finally meet Dirk Benedict. Because in the moment when I met him, I was this dumb, gushing girl. I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting this guy and everything. And I told him that, how long, and I had searched for his book and da 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 da. And then when I left and everything, I was kind of embarrassed because I was just gushing all over him. But, that's how it is, I guess. All right, here, let me just put this back. All right, so that's my show and tell. So I'm like, I have to find out more about this macrobiotic thing. What is it? I went to health food stores. I bought whatever book I could find. And then I found out there was a lady in Michigan who was teaching macrobiotic cooking classes. I went to her classes. I went to a few of them. And then she said, I need an assistant. And I went, me. So I became her assistant for 2 years. I worked at the school for 2 years and learned the balancing of the yin and yang, the specific ingredients, like wakame, like sea vegetable, like wakame, like what is that? How are you supposed to use that? Shiitake mushrooms, like what? And miso. I didn't know what any of that stuff was, so I had to learn what that was. And then the first thing I did was personal chef. So I would go into people's houses and I would cook all this macro food and everything, and I really enjoyed that. But then I got kind of like, well, I could teach the classes, and my family likes to say when I first got into macro and I would bring a dish, over, they would taste it and they'd be like, well, that's not good. But throughout the years, my creativity started to arise and I started to season the food and cook it correctly and do different techniques, right? And they said, it totally improved like 1000%. And so I've been teaching the classes for 29 years. I have 7 cookbooks. I've helped people along their journey, changing their diet, eating healthy foods from Mother Earth, as close to nature as possible. And, we're in the vegan health bundle, so we're all vegan. I am vegan, so I always advocate for that part of it also. And so this is what I do for a living.
Ah, amazing, Val. What an amazing story. And to have met your crush too, right? And so that was a pretty pivotal moment in your journey, it sounds like, to this lifestyle that you live right now. Is that right?
Absolutely. That book
Yeah.
changed my life. Although he in the book and everything, he's a very, very interesting writer and everything. He even says at the end, he goes, don't say that I changed your life, blah, 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 blah. But the book, because I didn't know anything about it till I came across it. But yeah, and he's still alive and still going strong. He goes to those Comic Cons, where the people line up to meet him, and yeah.
They're huge. Those Comic Cons are huge. They have them here in Vegas, quite frequently.
Oh, I
And
bet he's in Vegas quite
yeah,
frequently for him. Yeah.
yeah. So so macrobiotics talks a lot about balance, right? Especially the yin and yang and or yang as you say it. Um, how does that like translate into actual food choices and daily meals?
Okay. So, um, I'm gonna explain yin and yang. So yin energy has the characteristics of being upward and expansive. Yang energy has the characteristics of moving downward and being constrictive and yang. So we have yin and we have yang. Now, these two energies exist in everything. Okay. So even me standing here, I have some yin energy and some yang energy, and they're always working together. They exist in everything in varying degrees. Although sometimes my yin energy will be stronger, and then sometimes my yang energy will be stronger. But they're in there. So everything has it. It's just when we classify food, some foods have a stronger yin energy and a weaker yang energy, so we classify it. So I like to tell people to like visualize a teeter-totter. Okay, so we got a teeter-totter. And on this end, we'll have yin. We'll have like extreme yin food. And on this end, we'll have extreme yang food. So the extreme yin food is expansive, moving upward like so. So the extreme yin foods we classify as sugar, your desserts, your chemical sweeteners, your pharmaceutical drugs. In fact, all drugs, very expansive, right? So that's extreme yin things. Extreme yang things, constrictive and tight. That's where all your animal products are.
Hmm.
Any and all types of meat, they are yang, constrictive, tight. Your hard cheeses, yang, constrictive, tight. And you also find salt here, right? So that's why when you use salt, you use just a little bit of salt. But salt is very yang and sugar is very, very yin, right?
Hmm.
So if you eat the SAD diet, standard American diet, you're eating meat and then you're craving ice cream, right? So your teeter-totter is going up and down a lot, which creates chaotic energy. Disease lives in chaotic energy. If you have chaotic energy going on in your body from your teeter-totter bouncing up and down, back and forth, it creates dis-ease in the body. So what we do is we focus on the foods that are in the middle of the teeter-totter that are just about balanced with their yin and their yang energy. And that would be whole grains. Whole grains are in the middle of the teeter-totter. So in the macrobiotic lifestyle, the diet is based around whole grains. The majority of what I eat is whole grains. And I know a lot of people think to eat healthy, you eat a lot of vegetables. I do eat a lot of vegetables, and eating vegetables is very, very healthy. And that's fantastic. But I think a lot of people miss the whole grains. They're a category of food that our ancestors used to eat, but they refined and processed the whole grains and they created bread and refined bread with white flour. And also, I don't know, all those other processed foods that are made with flour. I don't even eat them anymore, so I don't know what they are, but like cereals in the morning or Pop Tarts or things like that. That is not whole grains, but that's what replaced whole grains from because our ancestors didn't make Pop Tarts and eat them, right? But
Right.
our ancestors a long time ago, they would harvest the oat groats, oats, and then they would cook them for a very long time in their pot on top of the fire, and they would eat this beautiful creamy rolled oats. Those are the whole grains that I'm talking about, not the refined processed ones. So in the middle of the teeter totter are your whole grains, and the one that's just about the most balanced is brown rice. So I mean, if somebody asked me what your favorite food is, and people have asked me this before, I would have to say brown rice. Brown rice. It's got to be because it's so versatile. It's so versatile. You can do anything with it. I mean, they make rice milk. They make what do they make with it? Rice pasta, brown rice pasta, amazaki, which is a natural sweetener that's fermented, rice mochi, which is one of my favorite foods, and that's pounded sweet rice that gets sticky. And so that's another reason why in macrobiotics your diet is based around whole grains and brown rice. So those are right in the middle of the teeter totter. And when you start eating these whole grains, it actually creates a calming energy in your body as opposed to the chaotic energy from the standard American diet of going up and down, up and down. You're in the middle of the teeter totter and you're eating the whole grains, and it feeds and nurtures your body, but it also centers you. It centers you, you're grounded to the earth, you're very grounded and centered with these whole grains. Now, in the vegetable category, we also can classify them according to yin and yang, although vegetables are in the middle of the category. They're in the middle of the teeter totter, right? So, and you can even think of, like I said, everything has yin and yang in it. So if you think of a carrot, the green part is expansive and upward. So the green part of the carrot would be considered the yin part. And the root, which is orange, growing downward and tight, that's the yang part of the vegetable. So ideally, if you could grow your own carrots, or if you go to the farmer's market, you would get a carrot with the green and the orange part, and you would eat the whole thing. And you would be eating the most balanced food there is because you're getting the yin and the yang of the carrot. But, a lot of times we have to go to the grocery store and we can only get the root part, which is still fine because vegetables are a balanced food. They're not an extreme food, but that's just an example. But also in the category are like root vegetables, which here in Michigan in the wintertime, I eat a lot of root vegetables, and those are yang, those are grounding. And then all of the lettuces and kale, those are all upwards, yin, expansive. And then the sweet potatoes, and those are underground. Daikon, those are all underground, those are yang. And then the lettuces are all yin. So variety of vegetables in your diet, you're getting the yin vegetables and the yang vegetables, again balancing the yin and the yang energy. So
That is
that,
so fascinating. I love it. Yeah, and interesting too how you said it's really focused. I love the analogy of the teeter totter. And of course, the extremes, how you laid out those extremes in the beginning. We've got the, ultra high processed foods on one end, and then of course you got the animal products on the other end. And then you have a variance of certain foods in between, and then the balance being for the macrobiotics is focused on these grains like oats, brown rice, and say, I mean, just to kind of like picture where I've been, the mindset that I have basically held for this past, 9 years, right? I was telling you 9 years. I had my 9-year raw anniversary on the 17th of this month. But a few years back, I took a trip with my son and we did a backpacking trip on the Colorado Trail. And on that trip, one of the nights it was snowing. And I was doing cold soaks, which is you soak your meal in water and you eat it. And I just didn't want to have a cold meal. I was freezing cold. Like we were hiking in the snow, and we're setting up our tents. It's snow on the ground, and I'm like, I just need some warm water. I want a warm meal tonight. And I sat there sitting in our tents, and I just started to kind of go over in my head, why am I not including things like brown rice, which I really miss, and lentils. I love lentils and beans and even potatoes and steamed root vegetables, the carrots and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower in that state of it having steamed. And that was kind of a turning point for me, that trip, because I was like, I don't necessarily want to build this box for myself to stay in, to be, say, percentage rate, because we call ourselves, raw foodies, but we're not 100% raw, because there are certain things that we eat that aren't considered technically raw. So I've never claimed to be 100% raw, but I was like, I don't necessarily know if I even want to be 95% raw. I would like to consider, like, if people looking in, if I was to describe the kind of diet that I eat, I would say high raw.
Mhm.
Because since that moment, I just made the choice. I'm like, these sorts of foods aren't addictive, because that's a whole nother aspect of when people get into certain diet niches, especially raw, they talk about cooked food being addictive, which right now I'm putting together for a video because I want to talk about this. And because I feel that there's a really big distinction between what's actually addictive and what cooked foods are. It's interesting though, because the mindset certain people have is like, if I let a little bit of cooked food in, it's over. I'm going to be wanting bags of chips. So for me personally, I really enjoy rice and lentils and steamed vegetables. Like I have steamed vegetables at least once a week, and I'll have rice and lentils like probably a couple times a month. But so that's where this is like really fascinating, because for me particularly, and of course, like for viewers like tapping in, we all could be doing a little bit better than what we're doing out there, right? Like, driving through, getting bags of, getting food through a, drive through window in a brown paper bag or whatever, just like junk. And it's just really interesting in these circles how some people are, it's an all or nothing kind of thing. And of course, my main focus is really just trying to help people understand that we ought to be eating more whole foods, and if we can really get the animal products out of our life, that's going to be beneficial, especially if we can make that ethical connection, like being vegan, because veganism has nothing to do with the diet at all. It's an ethical stance. But it's so fascinating how certain people, I have noticed, especially over these last few years, they go on this teeter totter. They're super extreme, calorie restricting, and even say like extreme in the sense of like fruitarian,
Yep.
but then rubber band back to animal products because they reach a point where they're having problems, deficiencies come up, and then the animal product they praise the animal products. Like as soon as I started to eat meat again and eat animal products, like I felt so much better. But it's so interesting that they weren't playing around in the middle of that teeter totter where they could very possibly be finding that balance of adding some of these sorts of foods into their life. So it's an interesting one. It's really interesting. And you know, like like you said, macrobiotics traditionally emphasizes cooked foods, and I lean heavily into raw living foods. From your perspective, like what role does cooking play in health and digestion?
Yeah. Excellent question. So, um, cooked food, you said cooked food is addicting. That's so interesting. I have never found cooked food to be addicting. I think, and we talked about this when I interviewed you, we talked a lot about your thoughts and your energy and how your thoughts and your energy create things. And addiction, yes, it can be to a thing. I get that. That can be part of it. But I think
Well,
more
pause
part
real
of it,
quick. Pause real quick. I feel that a cooked potato by itself is not an addictive food
no,
at all. But yeah, when we get into these more hyper palatable foods, but it is very interesting how, from the raw food circles, they feel that cooked food being denatured. You hear the word denatured because it changes the molecular structure depending on how you cook it, the temperatures, that being an addictive food. So, anyways, you continue. I just wanted to throw that out.
So I think that, and everybody's different, but I think that some people, for their thought processes, whatever lifestyle you're living, something could be addicted to you. But my energy and my lifestyle, I'm not addicted to anything. I'm not addicted to cooked food. So it might be like in the bundle, we have a couple really good videos talking about the emotional side of eating. And I think addiction might be more of that, you know? But to talk
Yeah.
about cooked food, and I don't want to say anybody is right or wrong. If you eat all raw food, I mean, Melissa is beautiful. She's one, she eats all raw food. I love that. And I think everybody has a different path, and you go down whatever path works for you, whatever creates health in your body, that's fine. You know, macrobiotics is what I did. Um, I wouldn't say macrobiotics is all cooked food or heavy food. What it is cooking according to the seasons. So I do eat more cooked food in the winter to create warmth in my body. And in the summertime, I eat a lot more raw food. But I live in Michigan, so we do have different seasons. Now, if you lived in a climate where you didn't have winter, where it was just hot all the time, your diet would be different. But you would still be living, balancing your yin and yang and living according to macrobiotics because you eat according to where you live. It's the energy of where you live. So if you lived, in a hot climate or whatever, you would probably eat raw food all year long. Plus, it would also be available. So I always like to look to our ancestors. If our ancestors were living here and they didn't have this house and they didn't have the convenience of a grocery store and they were living, in the Native Americans in their teepee, what would they be eating? Well, here in Michigan, they would have fermented some food when they had it. They would have some cabbages stored because cabbage lasts a long time. They would have the root vegetables like turnip and rutabaga and carrots. They would probably like have them in a hole in the ground or a fruit cellar. And that's what they would eat in the wintertime because that's what would be available. So in Michigan, we eat a lot according to the seasons. And to create warmth, we cook our food. And so definitely creating warmth in the wintertime through cooked food. And people, if cooked food was, denatured or there wasn't any health value in it, we as humans would not be here because we have been cooking over an open fire for a really long time. So if there was something wrong with it, we would have known before now, right? But again, if I don't want to offend anybody or upset anybody, but that's the way I look at it. So but eating raw food is fantastic. Some people, like we talked about, healing yourself from cancer. Some people, I've helped people heal from cancer using macrobiotics. Some people have healed from cancer juicing. Some people
Yeah.
have healed going all raw, and some people have such strong faith, they've been able to heal their cancer because of their faith. And it all has to do with the person, their individual journey, what's happening in their life. And so definitely it all depends on that. I'll tell you like a story to like visualize this. So here in Michigan, I love Michigan. I love where I live. I love the seasons. And people complain when it snows. And I'm like, it's so pretty. And I want to go out there and have fun in the snow. And other people are like, I don't like it. And then, yeah, there's times when we don't have sunshine here because it's cloudy and everything. But that's the way it is in Michigan. And I do eat mostly local things. And so I love Michigan. But I will come across someone who just complains about Michigan. I don't like Michigan, blah, blah, blah. I like Florida, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, cool. What do you eat for breakfast? Oh, well, for breakfast, I have a grapefruit. Okay. What do you eat for lunch? Well, I have a salad and I have sliced oranges on my salad. Well, what do you eat for a snack? A banana. I'll be like, well, that's great. You are eating the food energetically that makes you love the climate of Florida. And so there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to go live in Florida or wherever it's tropical, that's fine. But it's all energy. They are creating the energy to make them comfortable. me, I eat things from Michigan and I'm comfortable in Michigan. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't connect that because we can go to the grocery store and buy anything now, right? So
Hmm.
even in the middle of winter, people can go here in Michigan and buy anything. It doesn't energetically complement when it's, 2 degrees outside. You have to be warm. It doesn't complement that. But these are things that most people don't even realize, they don't even think about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fascinating because there'll be people that will message, and of course, us being people who are pumping the raw food message, Lissa and I, people will come to us and say, "Well, I just, they're like they're struggling. It's like they have to choose one or the other." And this is where my mindset is more recently, Val, is I really want to be able to help people with the proper information if they're coming and they've got some struggles and they're really trying to figure out what to do. I don't want to be like, it's this way and only this way, right? And they'll say, like, I just crave warm food. And, of course, we'll say, well, like, eat the warm food if that's what you need, like, especially, if it's healthy whole food.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating how it's just so interesting the mindsets of certain educators in different spaces and how they will try to articulate things in a way to keep people, I feel like, understanding. And I don't want to say locked in because maybe locked in is a little strong, but for lack of a better term, kind of locked into that framework, which is no other animal cooks this is the raw food, narrative in a sense. No other animal cooks their food. And when you cook it, it's denatured. You start to mess with things in that way. What are some other things? You don't you eat in a warm house. You're not eating food outside, and people will eat warm food in the summer. But sometimes people will say, well, like, I really want warm foods in the wintertime. I don't want to eat cold foods. And, the argument might be like, well, you're not eating outside, you're eating in your house. And so, really, like, where I'm coming from in this is I want to embody multiple modalities. And I don't feel like you said there's not like a one size fits all. Everybody has their own reasons. Like Lissa has her reasons of why she wants to stay raw. She has no desire to eat a potato at all. But me, I had two little red steamed potatoes in my salad last night because I just felt like a couple of potatoes. Maybe it was because of our live together. I don't know. But whatever the case is, I love these sorts of foods, and it's not going to derail me on my mission to be a healthy individual. Now, it's just so fascinating because it's kind of frustrating in a way that there is this, kind of like all or nothing mentality with certain individuals. And listen, I really do our best to really not embody that kind of energy because we're trying to bring people over from the teeter totters and being like, come to just eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. And I really like, I'll pump to my friends raw till 4. Have your raw meals during you could do like a raw oatmeal. I have oatmeal in the morning. Sometimes it's a 1 degree oat. So it's like a raw sprouted oat, but I'll grind it up in my Vitamix and then add the warm water and, maybe add some date sugar to it and some cinnamon and some banana. Sometimes I just feel like I'm excited for oatmeal. I don't always want a smoothie. Um, but the concepts of having these sorts of things and then have your cooked meal at night, because the average person, like I'm thinking of my buddies that are doing some construction work, it's like they're going to benefit from both more raw foods as well as eliminating the funk and the animal products, but still having like some good grounding, warm, heavier cooked foods at night, slowing it down. So it's so fascinating because like I said, and if people watch my YouTube videos, I talk about this quite a bit. I really, I don't have that lens of like, you have to be raw and you have to do a juice cleanse to detox for your body to even be able to absorb the nutrients from the raw food. Like, it's so fascinating, the mindsets that a lot of people have, and they have their own ways and their own whys. But I really, when we were talking, I was like, this is pretty interesting. And I started to I did a little research. I was like, what is macrobiotics? I don't even think I've ever even really tapped in to know much about that at all. And, macrobiotics talks about like the balance and the energy in food, which raw food also, people who are raw foodies talk a lot about that as well. How do you help people say, start noticing how food like actually makes them feel?
Ugh, that's a challenge because people are disconnected. I tell people, like I had this one very nice lady who had arthritis really bad, and she came to a counseling session with me. And I don't eat, I don't cook with nightshade vegetables because they can lead to pain with arthritis. But some people can eat nightshade vegetables without a problem, but some people can't. But anyways, this beautiful lady came to a consultation with me, and she had arthritis so bad it was like this. And she was making a smoothie and she was putting spinach in it every single morning. And I went, "Oh, that's a nightshade vegetable. You shouldn't use the spinach. You should substitute something else." And I go, "Why did you do that?" And she goes, "Well, I went to a lecture and someone said this is the best, smoothie to drink." And I said, "Well, since you started doing that smoothie, what happened?" She goes, "My arthritis got worse."
Hmm.
And I went, very nicely, because I'm in a consultation, I explained that she needs to listen to her body. And that is an example of what you're talking about. How do you get people to listen to their body, listen to the energy? She wasn't listening to her body. Like maybe the person standing next to her, that smoothie would have been great for them, but that smoothie was not good for her because of her arthritis condition, and the spinach was making it worse. But people are disconnected. They want, and your book talks about this too, Full Mass, where you were saying that, the people that are advocating for eating healthy, they're like, eat this because it has this vitamin, eat this because it has this vitamin, which is all great. We need to know the vitamins. But you started changing your diet and eating, and you were asking yourself, how do I feel after I eat this? That is the most important thing. How do you feel after I eat this? When I discovered macrobiotics, the first thing I did was I just started eating brown rice because I really didn't know what else to do. I went out, put it in a pot, bought some brown rice, put it in a pot, cooked it, and ate it. And I was like, I felt really good. I mean, I gave me more energy. I had more like clear thought processes. I just eating the brown rice, I just felt better. So I kept, that was my first step. So you just keep going towards what makes you feel better, instead of like this beautiful lady wasn't listening to her body when she was doing this. It was not correct for her, what she was dealing with, the pain that she was suffering with. So I that's a
Yeah.
good question. How do you get people to listen to the energy and listen to their body? I
Well,
If
that's
you
a
find
really,
the answer to that, let me know.
yeah, I know, right? I will. I'm on the search too, and it's interesting because part of me is hearing some rings of voices where it's like, okay, say someone is they have issues with nightshades. Well, to not eliminate the nightshades, but to start implementing a little bits of those nightshades because, when we get into the microbiome aspect of it, maybe they're missing some of the microbiome that can really handle those sorts of things. Now, I don't know anything, I really don't know anything. The more that we find out, the more we find out we don't know, right?
Exactly.
But it's really fascinating because there is a part of my brain that's like, I wonder if, she were to say maybe have smaller amounts because we don't know, but it's curious. Would she eventually be able to handle some of these nightshades? Because I know there are a lot of people who do have problems with nightshades, and that's one thing that really I'm having a hard time kind of getting on with the idea that it's a one size fits all thing for
It's
people.
it's
With
it's not a one size fits all, because you can
Yeah.
have one person who eats nightshade vegetables all the time and they have no arthritis pain whatsoever.
Yep.
But you could have somebody else who
But
could
that's where
eat
I'm
just
saying
a
is if
little bit and it would
yeah,
affect them.
it affects them. But when you have an educator that is educating or trying to teach or coach somebody that the nightshades very possibly aren't the issue, it's the microbiome, right? And to not to eliminate those foods, but to start with little bits. Because this is what I'm not sure if you familiar with Will Bolsowitz, Dr. Will Bolsowitz. He's a gastroenterologist, and he had this book that he came out with in 2020 called Fiber Fueled, and it really kind of helped us because he's not a raw foodie, but he's plant based, and we're like we ought to incorporate more fibrous, different plant varieties into our life, like expand it a little bit. Maybe we could add some endive and some, radicchio and different things that we're not eating. But it's just interesting because I'm wondering, like, where would they come from? Because what he talks about is like, not to exclude certain food groups, like say the nightshades, but to start with small amounts, very, very little, like one leaf of spinach, because that does kind of help build the microbiome that is able to handle that spinach. When you eliminate it, you start to eliminate that microbiome, that bacteria that is able to digest these sorts of things. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it because I want to be able to help people and coach people in a way that is very well rounded. Like I love raw food because of how it makes me feel, but I love brown rice. And it's interesting because I'll be talking to some people, like I've got a short grain, organic short grain brown rice, and it is so good. But some people will be like, man, as soon as I eat a little bit of rice, I feel like brain fog. And I was like, huh, that's very interesting. Like certain people feel certain things. And of course, these individuals are people who had just got off of a 21-day water fast, right? And so they're introducing some heavier, dense foods that, because, they were like, yeah, maybe I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem. But then, then I talked to them again and they're like, man, I was telling you the rice, I didn't have a problem with the rice, but then I just started to want to have rice more and more. And different thoughts were coming in their head. Like, well, if you're having rice, you might as well have this. You might as well have that. And so I'm not sure if you've heard of that book, The Pleasure Trap, by Doug Lyle and Alan Goldhammer.
Yes.
And that's a really great book. And it's all of these things are just so fascinating because there's this guy, Mike Fremont. He's like over 100. He reversed his prostate cancer, in his 60s. And, with Whole Foods, he wasn't eating, raw food predominantly for his source of calories or whatever. And so, that landed with me. I was like, look at like people, like you said too, people can heal with faith. When you just embody it, like I am healed. It's already done.
Yep.
And right. And the mind is so powerful. It is so incredible. So for me at this stage, Val, in my life, on my trail, I've been questioning a lot of things these past few years since that Colorado Trail trip because I had been putting myself in this box like it has to be all or nothing. And of course, being with Lissa, the partner, right, that I have, she knows herself. She's like, if I have any cooked food, it's going to be over. I'm just going to want more and more cooked food. And I'm not going to force her, but I'm like, I had those potatoes last night and I'm not craving potatoes tonight. Like I want the sushi we made.
Right.
So it's so fascinating, these different foods that can be very healthy and but how certain it can be for the average person looking in trying to figure stuff out. It can be just like daunting and confusing to where they just stop in their tracks and go put the pizza in the oven.
Absolutely. Yes, that does happen. By
Hmm.
the way, I love radicchio. You mentioned radicchio.
It's
Uh,
so good, right? And it's a bitter, and a lot of
yes,
people aren't, they don't eat a lot of bitters.
yes.
But yeah, there's some.
Arugula is actually my
Ooh,
favorite. I started
ah.
growing it the last few years. Oh my God, I love arugula.
See,
Yeah.
now for arugula, for me, I've been incorporating more of it because when I think of the microbiome health, I don't crave it like I'd like to. Like it's very strong. But I'm like, I'm just going to keep adding some arugula to my salads. And now it's like, it doesn't bother me as much. I still am not going to eat just like handfuls of arugula, which I don't eat handfuls of lettuce anyways by itself.
When it's fresh out of my garden, I will take it in and wash it and just go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you grow in the garden, like we've got our friend John Kohler, he lives here in Vegas. And he's got an amazing garden, and he had some ghost kale. It's like this white kale,
Oh wow.
and it has these beautiful green like outline. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant. And he's very into the soil health, right? And it was so delicious. Like it didn't need anything. I was like, man, you don't need a dressing or nothing. He's like, that's what I'm saying. Because some people be like, you're messing your greens up by putting dressings on it. And it's like, it's so funny the different mindsets that we can have or the boxes that we can try to contain ourselves in.
Yes.
But if we get back to the feeling,
Yeah.
because for
So that,
me, I was like, yeah, I've got it. I have to. There's no reason I shouldn't be eating some rice and lentils sometimes. Like, why not? Right. And it hasn't killed me. I haven't gone to the dark side, like incorporating some rice and lentils.
and it's really important to know yourself too, because some people they can't just, like you said, eat two, cooked potatoes yesterday and then today, you didn't even want some people cannot do that. Some people would be like, oh my god, I gotta have potatoes, I gotta blah blah blah. So everybody's
Yeah.
different, and you got to
Yep.
know yourself. And when
Yeah.
you were talking about the microbiome, it's so interesting, and you do need healthy microbiome, but I'm not a scientist. So I can't, like, if I was to, like, this lady with the arthritis and I'm working with her, she may eventually be able to eat spinach, but at the point in time where she's in so much pain and she's
Mm.
suffering, my advice is just stop eating it.
Yeah. Just eliminate it.
Because, I can't just, go inside of her microbiome and figure it out and all that other stuff. So it also depends on, like, where the person is suffering. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
Because, like you said, if you introduce it a little at a time, that makes complete sense. It really does. But if you're dealing with someone who's suffering a lot of pain and cutting out one certain food would alleviate that pain, then you definitely want to try going down that route for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating. I know these kinds of studies, say the microbiome studies, is fairly newer, like, probably in the last couple decades, but really like heavily within the last 10 years. And you send in a stool sample and they're able to see, you know, what you have more of than others. And it's fascinating stuff, but it's so interesting. I've got this this little piece. It's a coaster, right?
Yeah.
And you have all the rings of the coaster,
Yep.
and it's like trying to take this one slice of the tree and examining this one slice of the tree, but you're trying to you there's no way you can see the leaves and the branches and the fruit
Yep.
from the tree or the root system
Yep.
and all the stuff that's going on with the root system by just examining this one slice of the tree. So all of this stuff's so fascinating, and of course my main message to my guys is like, just start eating some more fruits and vegetables. We all know we need more fruits and vegetables. Don't, don't put yourself into eliminate the processed foods and
Yes.
just start eating more fruits and vegetables, because there is something that's really grounding about preparing warm food. So, what do you think like cooking does emotionally and energetically for people?
Mm. So energetically, when you cook something, you put it towards more the yang side, as opposed to the yin side is more in its raw form. So, um, and I was thinking about this too, because since I've been involved with the vegan health bundle, there's many people like you and Lissa who are raw that are still able to balance, even though you're eating all raw, by some of the food you eat is dehydrated. And that would be entering the yang element in there to balance. And so it's just really interesting. How does it play in your emotions? That's really, really interesting. Your emotions come from your body being balanced first and foremost. And in Oriental medicine, they teach us about the 5 transformations of energy. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Yes. So I also incorporate that in my cooking
So
and everything else.
maybe break that down for the people that are tuning in.
All right. So the 5 transformations of energy is the study of the seasons that we live through, Each season has a different energy, and it correlates with different organs in your body. And it's also associated with certain foods, and each season also has a signature taste, a flavor. And so when you feed and nurture all the organs in your body, your emotions are more calming, more peaceful. You're able to deal with things, right? And that's
Mm,
why mm, when I'm teaching about the 5 transformations of energy and we're dealing with different organs embody different emotions. Like the liver is anger. Um, Off the top of my head, grounding, like the fall season is where brown rice is, and that's the one that brings you down and grounds you to the earth. So when you're grounded, if you're hit with stress, you don't go overboard, over emotional. You're grounded. So the
mm,
brown rice grounds you, for instance. Um, Anger with your liver, that's your greens, clean your liver. Those are the foods that are associated with it. So you asked me about emotions and how does, I don't know, did you ask me about cooked
yeah,
food? That's what I'm trying to think. How does
yeah,
cooked food enter into your emotions? Because I know the energy of the food and how it is associated with the different organs. And then
yeah,
cooking it, how does that relate to
yeah,
your emotions?
yeah. That's what I was
I
thinking. Like,
tell you, I've never
what do you
been
think?
asked that question in 29
Yeah,
years of teaching classes.
really good. All right. Yeah, I was thinking, like, what do you think cooking does emotionally and energetically to people, for people?
Well, energetically, I think it's calm, it's yang, which means it's bringing you down, it's grounding you. If you are eating too much sugar or you're on prescription drugs and you're really high up here and you're really yin, you can't focus. Emotionally, you're scattered, you're all over the place. So cooked food will bring you down here and balance you and center you. That's the difference. Like when I counsel someone, if they come here in person, or even if I'm out in the public teaching a cooking class, I can usually tell if somebody is overeating either extreme yin food or extreme yang food. Because the extreme yin food people, you're having a conversation with them and they just all of a sudden say this. And you're like, what? They just all of a sudden say this, or they all of a sudden say this. And you're like, what? We were talking about, because they're very like up here, they're yin. And then if somebody is, too much of the yang food, they usually have a line right here, and they're, oh, ah, ah. I mean, those are examples of the extreme yin and the extreme yang food. And so the whole grains in the middle, I know you can soak your grains and you can sprout your grains, and they will give you the same balancing energy. But you, in particular, are talking to me about cooking the food, and cooking the food would give the grains more of a yang energy than the sprouting mechanism. Although they're still in the middle of the teeter totter, they're still balanced. But energetically wise, cooking the food definitely yangizes it. It makes it more yang.
So good. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and the extremes. We as humans, right? We sure do love these extremes, don't we? Oh my gosh. So let's think like if someone wanted to if someone wanted to bring like just a touch of macrobiotic wisdom into their kitchen this week, what would you suggest?
For beginners, if this is new, just eat brown rice. Just cook yourself brown rice and eat brown rice with
But
whatever
plain
else.
plain
But
or how would you prepare that?
in the beginning, I would say just do it plain.
Mhm.
That's what I did, 30 some years ago. But I,
Yeah.
I would put a little bit of sea salt on it back then because I wanted it to have a little bit of flavor. Not a lot, but just a little bit. But
Yeah.
back then, I just cooked up the brown rice, and back then, and people, if you're new to this, You'd be eating the average American diet, the sad standard American diet,
Yeah.
refined processed food, over, and everything. That brown rice, if you eat it, it has a natural sweetness to it. If you chew it, it is going to satisfy you. It is going to taste good. There is the exception to every rule. There will be people who will say, I think that brown rice tastes terrible, but that's the exception to the rule. Most people, when they eat it, it's going to be very satisfying. And it's the first thing I tell everybody to do because it's easy. I'm not going to tell you, like, I would love to tell you to stop eating white refined sugar. I say that all the time. But it's easier to just cook up a pot of brown rice and start eating it than go and stop eating white sugar. Those are all steps that eventually you have to get to, right? Stop drinking milk, right? Those are all steps you have to get to. But first, you asked me the first thing, just do the brown rice.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
had these ladies that came to a lecture a few years back. I was giving lectures at the local library, and there was different topics. One of them was anti-cancer, one was allergies, and so I would incorporate how does the food help you. And at every single lecture, I would tell people what I just told you. Just go buy some brown rice, cook it up, and eat it. First thing, do that, do that, do that. I would make other suggestions, but everything. So there was these two older ladies that came to all the lectures. They were super nice. I kind of got to know them. And after about a year or so, she said, can I give you my testimonial? I said, absolutely. She goes, I came here and heard you give these lectures and you kept telling people to eat brown rice. And I thought, what's that going to do? She goes, but I went ahead and did it because she said it every single time. She goes, I had pain. I could barely walk up the stairs. I didn't have
Mm.
much energy. She goes, and mind you, the only thing I've done is eat brown rice. She goes, I haven't incorporated daikon radish. I haven't started to eat tofu yet. She goes, I've just been eating brown rice. She goes, not
And
only can I walk
only,
up this,
was
yep,
it
just
only,
brown. That's
that's
all
it?
she did.
Yeah.
She just started eating brown rice. She didn't change anything else. She
Okay.
said,
So she was still eating other foods,
yes.
other food. Okay. Okay. I'm like, just brown rice? That's all she ate?
No.
Okay.
What I meant was she was still eating whatever she was eating before. She incorporated the brown rice. She had not started doing my other suggestions like daikon radish or tofu, which were some of my other suggestions. That's what I meant. Yeah, she was just, instead of taking things out of her diet, I just added the brown rice back. And that's what she did. And she said, not only is she able to walk up the stairs now, she's able to run up the stairs.
Wow.
And she said because she had such a beautiful positive reaction just from eating brown rice, she said, now I'm going to try all those other things that you keep suggesting too.
I love that. I love that. Wow. See, it's so fascinating. All the stuff is so fascinating. These are just like tiny little facets in the whole spectrum of everything that we experience and go through and deal with and try to figure out in life what we eat. I mean, it's a big facet. It's a bigger facet than some of the other ones, but it's fascinating how that one thing, just adding in the brown rice, was a catalyst for her, right? It's so we can't, and of course, when we want to get all scientific, we want to understand like what is it about that did that, and it's just fascinating because will we ever really know, right? Will we ever really know why that one particular food shifted something within her to where she got some of her vitality back? And you can't discredit certain anecdotes. And I feel like it can be tricky in this world, especially with social media, and we can everybody's an expert or a guru in some
Yes,
way,
yes,
and yeah, and so it's like you hear the one story, and then you it's easy to cling to certain ideals, and and this is the thing that I've been seeing for the past decade in this space of raw veganism is watching people not find that balance, like struggle to stay in the box of where they put themselves. They built this box themselves over the maybe the lectures and the books and the podcasts that they've listened to that are really empowering. Because when someone comes across real confident and very articulate, it can be really easily or easy to be persuaded to take what they're saying as the gospel. And yeah, it's just fascinating because I feel like it's really, really interesting how some people like, have a hard time finding that balance. Like I feel like, Liz and I, we have a really good balance because yes, we eat warm foods. We make soups in the Vitamix, blend it till it's warm. We put the bowl in the dehydrator to warm the bowl up, and we dehydrate marinated frozen and thawed vegetables so it has a texture of them being steamed. It's all raw, which of course can be kind of, I mean, this is how we make our living. Like we can't, this is our box. This is who, our, where we stand with how we want to educate and share, what we've found to be really fun and amazing. But it's so fascinating how we get hated on by other raw foodies because we're not fruitarian or doing it a certain way. We have a dehydrator and it's gourmet is it's so interesting the mindset of certain people to where if for certain people looking in, this is where people just go, I give up. Let's go to Taco Bell. I don't know what to believe. This person's saying all fruit over here is the way to go. And, listen, Nate are like marinating and dehydrating. We're making crackers and we're eating jalapenos and seasonings and stuff. It's so fascinating, all the aspects to food and how food plays such a massive role in how we feel and in the healing of certain issues that people have. And yeah, like I
I
never wanted to be a raw foodie. I really didn't want to be a raw foodie, but there was something about it where I was just like, I need to give this a shot. And of course, like it feels amazing. But then I came to a point where I was like, I don't want to be all raw, like all raw. Like, I mean, I really, since I've incorporated brown rice has been amazing. And I say it in multiple podcasts and interviews, like I incorporate these sorts of foods. I don't think that they're evil, bad, addictive foods, right? And I don't use salt. I might put a little bit of like I might put a pinch of Himalayan salt on my rice once in a while, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just make like a real good curry or like a mahini curry, more tomato based curry, warm, and then pour that on my rice and lentils so it's not just dry, right?
and
But yeah,
your book, Full Mass, you have a whole section where you talked about salt. I really enjoyed that too, being open because there's oh my God, there's all this blah information out there like salt is the worst thing ever. Don't eat any
yeah,
salt and da 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 and it's like and I use salt in balance because salt is very very young and but I use it to bring out the flavors of everything,
yeah. Yeah, not
but
and it's
not to
right, not
excess.
over, right,
Yeah,
not to
not
excess. Yeah,
yeah,
because what's tricky is it's in everything. The average American's getting around 4,500 milligrams of sodium a day.
way too much, way too
Way
much.
too much.
It's ridiculous.
So,
Yeah,
but if somebody like I had some dude like freaking out on me the other day because he's like, "You're ruining these delicious wraps you guys make with that salty sauce." And it's like, there's a little coconut aminos in the sauce. So, yes, it's got sodium chloride, but come on, people. And he's like, I get frustrated and, feel that. And I'm like, you sound frustrated right now. Like, you're not, maybe you need a little bit of salt, bro. Like, salt, it's so fascinating how we can slip into these areas where that's the devil. This was the fall of mankind and all these
yes,
sorts of absolutes.
yes,
And salt is very very important mineral. Like we need salt. There's a reason we have the taste buds for salt.
yes,
But of course, like you said, in balance,
in
right?
balance.
Not like using
Absolutely.
people, man, I've been there's so many comments. I'm just like, I don't even have the energy to even reply to some of
I
these
just
people
like
because
you and Melissa are like huge influencers. You have huge followings and I always like want to be like an influencer. And now you're telling me about all these negative comments. I'm like, do I want that?
well,
But
it's like maybe 5 to 10% at most. Everybody like it's like it's like definitely 90% of the comments are
you
really
need to
beautiful
you
comments.
need to focus on the 90%.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I can't help because it makes me think like, why is this person freaking out about a little bit of salt? There's something going on there,
Let it
right?
go.
Oh,
Let
I
it go.
do. I do, but I think it's also, I think there's a lot of people who don't talk about it because in this space, especially the raw vegan niche, and you have different sects within the raw vegan space. You've got, I would say, like fruitarian would be the one spectrum. Then you've got natural hygiene. Have you heard about natural hygiene?
No.
So, natural hygiene, it's a beautiful concept. Natural hygiene is, and I believe they might tap into a little bit of the Ayurveda style stuff with like no root vegetables because you have to uproot the vegetable,
Yeah.
which disrupts the soil and you are killing the plant. So, no death. Only leafy greens might be good because you can still just cut off a leaf at a time, but only from the trees, the bushes, and the vines. Now, it
Hmm.
makes sense because, on that level, you're taking the carrot and you just disrupt the whole soil ecology. But it's just fascinating the mindsets of these. I have some like really close friends that are natural hygiene like purists. We call them the purists. And there can be certain people that just kind of have that elitist mindset. And so that's where some of these comments come from. I feel like they come from some people who are slipping into more of that elitist, purist mindset. And we're not promoting what they believe to be the way,
Yes.
right? And of course, it's fun because I'm like, oh, this will make a great video topic. Like for some people, because I had a question like, do I need to go 100% raw or can I ease in? And it's like, why are you even wanting to do this in the first place at all? And then when you have your why, you could ease in or you could go all in, like just track to make sure you're getting enough food because we see a lot of problems in the raw vegan space with people and their health because they slip into these absolute circles of just all or nothing mentality. And like, I mean, of course, there's parts of me that I would love to be in a loincloth on the island, but I would probably be spearing some fish, maybe eating some mussels, because like you'd have to be making sure that you're surviving. And that's the whole survival mentality. It's interesting, all these different mentalities. So yeah, when you mentioned macrobiotics, I was like, I like the name of that. Like that sounds pretty darn delicious, like, we got the microbiotics, then we got the macrobiotics. And yeah, the balance of it all is I really think that's where a lot of the fun can come from. And listen, I have a lot of fun making food, and we want to also really show people how how amazing raw food can be. And and so we stick there, right? And I have my story and my why, which I shared with you, and Lissa has hers as well.
Hmm.
And she knows herself.
Yep.
And I feel like for some people looking in, a lot of people have this because of the influencer aspect, like it has to be this all or nothing kind of thing. And I just don't really feel that that's a healthy way to go about it. You don't have to be like me or you. Like it's to listen to ourselves. But of course, there are the concept of like people under eating or not eating enough, not tracking what they eat, starting to come in deficiencies. And they're like, I eat intuitively. And it's like, well, we have to first train ourselves how to eat properly before we can actually eat intuitively. Because intuitively might be like, I'm just not hungry. And then adaptive thermogenesis works in, and you're just like, you start to lose your appetite because you just don't eat enough. Right. There's people who don't eat breakfast and they're like, I just don't like breakfast. And it's like, well, because you don't eat breakfast. If you start eating breakfast, you're going to start wanting breakfast. We watched this series called Super Size versus Super Skinny. A fascinating show. And it kind of goes along the same lines as The Hoarders. Hoarders is another show. And it's so interesting because a lot of these individuals, certain people say the super skinnies, they don't eat. They don't eat anything. Like they just, for whatever reason, psychological. And then the super size people like eat, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day. What they would do is they would get them together in a house and they would swap their meals.
Oh,
And
geez.
the person who never ate has to eat and they each have to watch each other. Like, I feel so bad that you're only having a glass of water for breakfast. And the other person's like, oh my gosh, I have to eat this stack of pancakes and coffee and soda and even a chocolate bar. It's fascinating, Val. And it's all some form in a lot of ways some form of trauma based expression, right? Like same with people who hoard. Something happened in their life
Yes.
where there's this trauma and it's expressed this certain way, and it's all just so fascinating. And I don't feel that, like, because a lot of these individuals, the people who were super skinny had more health issues, even though thinness is kind of like, this ideal that's pumped. But the people who were, so all three of these people, the supersized people, the super skinny people, and the hoarders, more often than not, I think it was like 95%, 90% of the people go back to those ways, even after they have been helped and gone through some, say some therapy. It's fascinating, the human mind and the human body. And I just, what hurts me and saddens me is to see people go from pumping the gospel in one direction, hardcore, and then rubber band back to eating animals. Because, of course,
Yes.
with the vegan lens, I'm like, all right, there is a way to where we can sustain a very healthy, vibrant life, not having to eat animals. I truly believe that. Like 100%, we needed to at a point in time in history, and it was needed possibly after the flood, right? We talked a little bit
Yep.
about that with forbidden knowledge. And it even says too, like, well, you can do this now, but we're supposed to hop back on our feet and get back to the way that should be eating, which is more of the plants. And I don't know, it's all so much fun. And and it can be just disheartening in a way to see how certain people lock themselves into these boxes and get angry. And it's like, man, if your pumping fruitarian diet is like the end all be all, you're going to reach samadhi. Like, you seem
Yep.
very frustrated, like something's missing in your life. I don't know if the fruit diet's working for you.
Yes. And there's so much things I was thinking, but again, going back to the balance of the different foods, and if you have the emotional issue, like you just mentioned, someone who's mad or whatever, they seem like they're eating this really good healthy diet, but for some reason that's out of whack. See, in my macrobiotic background in my training, I would think about the five transformations of energy and feeding all the organs. And if they were, doing something that was too restrictive, they weren't feeding the whole circle of your energy of who you are, is how I would look at it.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and I like that. I really do, because in my own thought process, and when I just think about energy, like, I believe that truly, like, there is definitely there's validity to having that balance. And that's where, for me, I had to like unravel this, I had to crack open the box that I had put myself in. Like, why am I not allowing myself to eat beans and rice? Like, I love beans and rice, and I don't know if you've heard, like, some will say, like, there's, different people, different educators. I won't name them off, but they talk about mucus forming foods and acid
Yes.
forming foods, and of course, acid environment and all these sorts of things. And I'm just like, people have been eating beans for like
A long
the since
time.
the beginning of time. Like, I don't really see how that could be. And of course, the concept of, there's no other animals that have stoves. And it's like, yeah, but you're talking to me through a rectangle device that's going to out, you know what I mean? Like, we're not just animals running around out there. Like, we create all these crazy, amazing things. So yeah, it's just fascinating stuff. And I mean, there's a reason that we connected. And I really appreciate you reaching out and wanting to connect, because um, you kind of, in a way, like, not even in a way, like, you full on lit something within me that I want to dig into more of, because I feel like this is a really good, in my men's group, I want to be able to embody multiple different foods that could be very healthy and beneficial. And when you're talking about the balance and eating with the seasons, there's there's that's valid, like 100%. Like, people will say, like, oh, you would never eat blueberries and whatever else, some subtropic fruit together because they don't even grow in the same climates. And, of course, like I'm like, whatever, I'm going to have my blueberries and my, other fruit. Like, it's maybe it's not, pineapple and blueberries. You're not going to even get those in the same area or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. My main thing is like, I don't want to see people have these issues that can be remedied through finding that balance within themselves, not boxing themselves in, not restricting certain foods that maybe they love. But I know people have some problems with
Yeah.
this trauma. Like we all come here to experience some
Right.
trauma.
Everybody's different. And there are some people that, certain foods would trigger them. Um, and when you talk about trauma, so incredibly interesting, this particular way of looking at trauma, because a lot of people who have food addictions, well, comes from trauma. A lot of
Yeah,
things that people suffer with, whatever, is from trauma. And it could be trauma that you don't even remember from you're like 3 years old or something like that.
yeah, right.
But I heard this, I wish I could remember what, I think it might have been Next Level Soul, which I told you about too. Someone was talking
Yeah.
about trauma, the emotional side and the energetic side, and they said trauma will happen to a person and they can't believe that it happened because it's terrible. Whatever it
Mm,
is, it's just terrible. So there's a mindset like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, let's say hypothetically, your mom did something mean to you. She treated you terrible. Oh my God, I can't believe my mom treated me terrible. So you can't admit that it happened. So you hang on to it forever, trying to justify or figure out why your mom did it. Like, I can't believe she did that. Because most people in a loving relationship, your mom nurtures you and takes care of you. But if you're put in that situation where the trauma is created, and I'm just using this as an example, it could be anything. I'm just using this example, but the mom treated the girl, whatever. So the person will hold on to that trauma their whole life, trying to overcome it and everything. And if they just had the wherewithal to just realize, yes, my mom did that to me. Yes,
mm,
my mom did that to me. Instead of denying, like, I can't believe she did that. Why would anybody do that? Asking the questions instead of, yes, my mom did that to me. And in whatever way you need to, spiritually, whatever, like, she didn't do it intentionally. I let her go with love, whatever. But the basic premise to overcome the trauma is to actually admit that it happened.
mm,
I don't know. When I heard that, it just like was an aha moment, because everybody has trauma and I had a beautiful childhood growing up. But I do know friends and people that I know that do suffer with something like this, and they still talk about it to this day, and they're still holding on to it, and it can affect things that we're talking about, like being addicted to food, because it's a trauma that you hold on to.
mm-hmm.
I just thought that was just an amazing concept. And you had mentioned trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, to be able to release it or, yeah, make peace with it rather than just I know it's so fascinating. There's this thing called the Sedona method. Have you ever heard of that? The Sedona method?
I don't know. Maybe.
So it was like basically we hold on to something so tight. Like if you're squeezing a pencil, after several minutes, you can't even feel it anymore, but it's there. You're holding on to it.
Yes.
And it was all about like release, the power
Yeah.
of being able to release things and forgive and these sorts of things, because these cause dis-ease
Yes.
within us as well. And I know, and it's so like we're so fascinating as a species, as a human species, and all these different aspects. And yeah, it's
Oh,
it's fun. It's fun stuff. And what it's really powerful is to see people make connections, be able to release, go inside, understand different aspects of themselves. Like we all need therapy, and it's like not, being a raw foodie isn't going to heal you from everything, or being a
right.
macro,
Yeah.
biotic person is not going to heal you from everything. But, of course, we all agree. It doesn't matter if you're a carnivore or you're, paleo or you're a raw foodie or whatever. We all agree that the processed foods are absolute
Yes.
trash. And there is something really, I mean, there's scientists that, that formulate the smells because 80% of what we
Yes.
experience is through the smell. So it's like the food is trash, but it smells so good because that's all formulated, right? It's like, whoo, there's some big games being played in a lot of ways. I wanted to ask you this too, Val. Like, have you seen macrobiotics especially support women in a unique way?
No, not in a unique way.
Hmm.
I I haven't observed it. I haven't observed that they don't. I
Hmm.
haven't really either way, really.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
What would you like if you could? What's like one thing that you wish? And of course, one thing is pretty big, but what's one thing that you wish more people understood about macrobiotics?
Oh, what's
Take your time, no hurry.
um that it's not the crazy brown rice diet.
Is that what it's
Although
known
I
as?
although I do love brown rice, but yeah, the founder of Macrobiotics, George Osawa, if you read any of his books, he's the founder, and he would advocate for going on a 7 day just eating brown rice for 7 days. That's very harsh. That's
Hmm.
very harsh, like a fast, just brown rice for 7 days. But at the point in time that Osawa lived, back in the 50s and 60s when he was advocating this, uh, people needed it at that time. But um, yeah, where was I going with this? Oh, the weird brown rice diet. So that's how it got associated with the weird brown rice diet. Um, and people like you are talking about in the raw food community being so narrow minded and everything, and in the macrobiotic community, they're beautiful, beautiful people, but they tend, to when people pass away, people tend to judge. And I don't like that. I don't like to judge people, number one, but there have been macrobiotic people who have passed away from cancer. And everybody right away goes, but macrobiotics is the anti cancer diet. And it's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't mean that you're perfect. Like you just said, eating all raw, eating macrobiotics, whatever lifestyle you choose, you can still get a dis-ease because there's an emotional component to it, and it hits you for whatever reason. Your soul is on a journey. Maybe you signed that contract before you came down here that you were going to experience that no matter what diet you were eating. But it tends to be like they were all like jumping up and down because there was some macrobiotic people who died of cancer. And I'm like, you don't know that person. You have no idea what they were thinking. You don't know what traumas they suffered as a kid. You don't know what was in their heart. I mean, one thing that's going to happen to all of us, we're eventually going to die, right?
That's what I
It's
always say.
sad
We're
and
all
horrible.
we
It's
all gonna die.
yeah, which doesn't sound good, and I don't like to focus on that. But
Sure,
hey,
it's a
it's gonna,
fact. That's
so
one thing
when
we
the
all have in common. We're
right,
all
it just that's I wish that would change more in macrobiotics, that people would be more open to not I don't know, it's like
Yeah.
disheartening,
Well, like
like
I
an
liked how
uproar.
like AJ would say, Chef AJ, she's like, it's like you're putting on the seatbelt, right? There's no guarantee that you're not going to get in an accident.
Exactly.
And then when Chris Wark did his lecture at the Plant Powered Party, what I loved about it was he was tapping into this, which is it goes so much deeper. There's so many layers, so much deeper than just the food. Because people are
Yes.
looking for like the end all be all. When people get sick on a raw diet or they pass away on a raw diet, it's like, well, raw foods, like we're not going to live forever.
Right.
We want what we're shooting for is a better quality of life. Like you say, you like to go out there and go skating.
Yes.
And you can't skate with them, a lot of your girlfriends because they just aren't capable. So like their quality of life isn't there because most more often than not, I mean, food has a massive role in that.
Yes.
But it's fascinating because you could do all the perfect things. You rebound, you go to bed on time, you meditate, you say your whatever and you eat the right food, but you haven't forgiven somebody
Yes.
like your mom and you're holding that. It's like
Yes.
in there. So it's just that's what's so fascinating about living life as a human is it's
Yeah.
just a fun ride. It can be a real fun ride, and it really sucks when stuff isn't going good and you have problems with your body. And food, of course, can really help us in so many ways. Eliminating animal products, I feel like, I mean, we think of energetically, like,
Yes.
whoa, that is
Yes.
not the kind of energy we need to be putting into our bodies. And then when we start to, I really like the concept of eating with the seasons or listening to yourself. If someone needs like a few months worth of like good, warm, grounding food. And that's going to keep them eating more healthy plant foods. And rather than being like, let's go out to Taco Bell tonight
Right.
or get Chinese takeout, hey, man, eat that whole, warm, cooked meal. Like that's way better than, just being like all or nothing. So yeah, it's so fascinating, Val, and I really appreciate that the work that you do and what you're, helping people with out there. Like let me ask you this. Like what brings you the most joy about teaching this work? We can kind of end on this.
The,
We'll have to wrap it up.
yeah. Um, the reaction of the people when they taste the food,
Mm,
they're blown away. And they, so many times when I've taught a cooking class and everything, and especially like if I'm at a health food store and there's like a large audience, when it gets the time for them to sample it, because they're listening to me and they're thinking, yeah, whatever, and they go, oh my God, this is delicious. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am a chef. I wouldn't serve it to you if it wasn't delicious. But I mean, that's the reaction. And like, my latest thing is I've been working on vegan cheese, and I do
mm.
not like nutritional yeast. I don't like the taste of it. I know everybody uses it in their vegan cheese, and that's fine, whatever. But I came up with this awesome recipe, and I worked on it and worked on it and worked on it, worked on it, worked on it, and I made like a cheese that you can cut, although it's soft. But then I thought I can make a nacho cheese sauce. So the last class that I taught was Mexican with this vegan nacho cheese sauce, and I'm teaching it to the students, and I go, now, I think it tastes like cheese, whatever. Here, taste this. And they all go, oh my God, this tastes just like nacho cheese sauce. Bonus, I hit it. I made it. That's what I was looking for. I mean, that gives me the most joy probably is when I see their reaction and they're blown away by how delicious it is, because most people are under the misconception that healthy food is bland, boring, doesn't taste good. So, yeah, that's wonderful. I love that.
Mm. Ah, so awesome. That has got to be one of the best feelings ever. Yeah, where they're like, they have that aha moment, like, wait a minute, this is actually healthy and tastes good. Oh, that is so
Before
awesome.
before we end, I kept wanting you to go back to that piece of
Oh
wood
yeah,
that you showed.
this one
And
here.
your point was it's only a sliver and you
Hmm.
can't see the rest of it. And that is a great analogy for the medical profession. When you
Yeah,
go in there and
right,
they give you all these specialists. This
right.
guy's going to special on your blood
And
pressure. This guy's going to special
they
on
each
your blood sugar.
specialize. Yeah,
And
they each.
instead of like they all need to work together.
Yeah,
And that's what macrobiotics does too, is they look at the whole thing. They don't look at this or look at this like that slice of wood. You have to look at the whole thing, because
yeah.
everything creates your health, like we've been talking about. But that slice of wood was just such a visual, fantastic example of, just looking at a piece of it instead of looking at the whole thing. I love that example.
It's so cool that you brought that up because when I was showing that, I was going to mention that about the specialists because coming from a medical background, you have all these specialists, and they'll look at the notes, but it's not like they're sitting around a round table trying to figure out holistically what is really going on. And so there's a lot of disconnection. And I think, I mean, with my mindset and the lens that I look through, I think a lot of that's on purpose. But yeah, it's fascinating because yeah, we can't see how magnificent this tree was by getting in there with a microscope and going in, micro. We can't
Yes.
see the macro. It's only a sliver. And that is totally how it is with us as humans. And I feel like, yeah, when you had talked about you do some some get-togethers like a women's, do you still do that? Women's
No,
retreat?
unfortunately, I don't do that anymore. For 15 years, I ran a woman's spiritual group where we got together and at first, we did guided meditations, but then I got to the point where I was writing the meditations and I was leading them in guided meditations. We would do healing energy work, we would do Reiki. In the middle of the summer, I love Native American spirituality. So I would read a lot of books about that and we would go out in my backyard and we would have fire and we would honor the four directions and then I would like ancestors, we would honor the ancestors and I would try and incorporate like the Native American, like what they would do. It was so powerful, the
Yeah.
energy that we created.
The
Yeah.
energy. Yeah. And that's so needed in so many ways too, especially more so now these days because we can literally be in our houses and be like, I'm going to order my food.
Yes.
I'm going to have it delivered. I don't want to see anybody, and yeah, I mean, what a life, this is that we're living at this time. I mean, it's an exciting time in so many ways because like look at you're in Michigan, I'm here in Nevada. We can communicate through these devices and it's just fascinating stuff.
Did
Val,
you
I what's
did,
that?
did you know that Chef Julia Dunaway was just in Vegas?
I heard that. Yeah, I
And
heard that.
when I heard her say that, I'm like, well, that's where Nate and Melissa told me they live. I'm like, they should have
Yeah.
like met each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't I know, we didn't even know until after she was gone. Um what I wanted to say was, how can people find you?
Okay, so website is macroval.com and that has links to all of my different things. I really like if people would follow my YouTube channel, which is Chef Valerie Wilson, because I like to share, like you do, talking about healthy food. I do share recipes on my YouTube channel also. And on the website, you can sign up for my newsletter. I do send a weekly newsletter letting you know about all of my upcoming cooking classes. I teach both in person and virtual. So even if you don't live close to me, you can attend a class. I have a Substack blog and I write blogs. The link for that is on the website. Facebook, I'm Macroval Food. You can follow me on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I'm not as active on Instagram. In fact, I can't even tell you the call letters for it, but it's Val, Macroval. But again, if you go to macroval.com, you got links, Val Substack. Follow her on Facebook, follow her on YouTube. It's all right there on the website. Thank you
It
for
looks
asking.
like absolutely, Val. I want people to find you. So yeah, it looks like it's Chef Val on Instagram. Chef Val underscore macro Val.
Yeah. You
Yep,
have to create, when
good.
you go on Instagram, you have to create a name.
You
You
got to create
incorporate something.
your handle, they call it, right? You got to create your handle. I know it's so fascinating. There's all these different platforms. It's beautiful. It's amazing that we have access to these platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and all these places that are free, completely free, where we can connect, we can promote our products and services and what we do. It's an exciting time. And I think that we all offer key pieces to people's puzzle when they're out there looking for certain answers and trying to figure stuff out. They're asking the questions, so it sends them on that quest, right? And it's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. I can't get over how just the food aspect is just so incredibly amazing. And yeah, we
It would,
see how it can really heal us, but there's that other component that Chris Beats Cancer talks about,
yes.
which is so huge. There is so many other levels. You can you can do all the perfect things, but if you are still harboring hatred or holding resentment, that could possibly be the thing that is still locking you in. And yeah, I know it's just exciting. I get all excited. I'm an excitable person.
I get excited about certain things too. Like, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's called passion. You got
That's
to
it.
have passion in your life.
Yep.
That's what you got to have. Yeah.
I definitely am a very passionate person. Yeah, this has been really fun. We'll have to connect again. I'd love to go live again for sure. I want to go live more on YouTube more often. I don't know if I did it right or anything, but I haven't had any questions coming through at all. Nobody even Oh, it looks like Grace just popped in here. I'm not sure if she was in here before. Well, that's cool. At least I know that it was working. What's up,
Okay.
Grace? Yes, vegan cheese without nutritional yeast, she says. Yeah. What was your YouTube channel? I
Chef
guess
Valerie Wilson.
okay, Chef Valerie Wilson. I don't know if I can see if people are even in here. I'll have to figure out how to work the YouTube live, but I want to go live on YouTube more. And I love these kind of conversations. I feel like it can really be beneficial for people because there are people who their partners aren't into health food. And,
Yes.
if we can kind of like get them in somehow, like what is it that you need? There's all kinds of stuff. You don't have to be, you know, you don't have to put yourself in one particular box. Yeah.
So we hardly even mentioned the vegan health bundle.
I know it. Let's rock it again. The vegan health bundle. What do we have? We're counting down less than, just a little over 24 hours.
Yep.
Val, you have your contribution in there, which you have, what is it, 8 hours worth of
8 hours worth of
lectures?
videos. Yep.
Yep, 8 hours worth of videos. Go check out the vegan health bundle. I'll be sure to link that in. Actually, I do have it. I put it in the description. So
This
the
is
link is in
Nate's
the
hummus.
Hey, yeah. So yeah, check out the vegan health bundle. It's almost over and it doesn't cost anything to at least go take a peek to see what's inside. I know we didn't talk about the vegan health bundle at all. This we could have definitely promoted it way more. What are you doing tomorrow? Do you have some time we could go live again tomorrow?
No, my brother's birthday is
Oh,
actually
that's right.
today, and I'm getting
Okay.
together with my family tomorrow.
I
And
have one slot open essentially for time tomorrow, but that's good. You're going to be
wow,
doing
you're busy. You got
family
only one
time.
slot open.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I we have to schedule in this time of year, we have to schedule time to eat and
You
time
have to
to
schedule time to eat.
rest. Yeah, because if we keep running one into the other, we get energy from one another. I'm not necessarily hungry because we're having these great conversations, but it's dinner time. It's past dinner time, and we
Yeah.
have all this amazing food that we made today. So,
Oh,
yeah,
I
so
saw on Chef AJ. Yeah, Melissa was on Chef AJ's show. The food looked amazing. And you were walking in there and like taking some and eating.
yeah, I was the camera guy for her show, so we could get people in close to see how stuff is made.
Can
And yeah, and
can
then
can I ask a personal question? You
sure,
posted there was something wrong with your cat today. Is your cat
yeah,
okay?
you know, um, she was just here with me. I think she went back out to the living room. We'll see.
Okay.
So what one of her eyes isn't contracting, like it's staying dilated. It's pretty bright out. The other one is really contracted, like a nice super tiny snake eye slit, but the other one is wide.
Wow.
So that caused us to be concerned. So we brought her in this morning to the vet, and they said, okay, it's not an emergency because they were checking out a few things, but they suggested an ophthalmologist. So we're going to go see an ophthalmologist on Monday. It does look a little bit better today, like it is contracting a little bit more. But yeah, it's fascinating. And this is another thing we were talking about. Listen, I'm like, it's wild because you can have people who dedicate their lives to just that, right? Like wanting to they're an eye doctor for animals.
Wow.
How
Yeah.
awesome. You know what I mean? Like that's what, while they're driving their car to the store, they're thinking of the test that they ran and, was that a tumor and they've got the MRI, like that's where they're focused on because we love our animals. It's just so amazing all the different people in the world doing the work that they do to help others, when someone's animal is sad and in a distressed state, the owners are distraught, and we have people that's what they do. They dedicate their lives to helping us figure that out. So, yeah, hopefully they'll be able to give us some more information on Monday because they're closed until Monday. But it isn't as wide as it was yesterday, so that's kind of a good sign. And it might have just been, maybe one of our other cats thwapped her, but it's not scratched. The cornea is not scratched. So yeah, so fingers crossed. And I know you have a
Yes.
bunch of fur babies over there
Yeah.
as well. Five.
How many do you have?
We have three.
I
We
have
have,
five.
yeah, you have five, man. So I know Lissa's like, if anything ever happened to you, she's like, I would just be one of those crazy cat ladies with like 20 cats. Not calling you a crazy cat lady,
Thank you.
but, uh, but she
I
was,
had
that's what she said. She's like, I would just have so many cats.
I have a male and a female, Rod and Jewel, and they had kittens. Oh my God. You
Okay.
talked about, I mean, so, like our life and everything. This was one of the most wonderful things. I stayed up all night long as she gave birth to four kittens. It was
Oh,
just beautiful. I did give one away to a very, very nice home, but the other three, I don't know. The longer they were in my house, I'm like, I can't let them go. So I kept three of the
yeah.
babies, and that's how I ended
Uh,
up with five. And every single day they make me laugh. They all have their
yeah.
own unique personalities, and
Yeah.
yeah,
They
and
do.
having animals is so good for your heart. It's so good for
100%.
your energy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
And
they
I feel
all
like,
your
I
health.
feel like most people have a vegan heart. They do because we have people, so many people. I know many people that are the same. They love their pets. They
Yes,
love their dogs, their horses, their cats, their fish, their ferrets, whatever it is that they have. But yet they still eat animals. It's so
yes,
interesting, that disconnection. And yeah, a lot of times I've thought about focusing really, really laser focused in that area of just trying to get people to understand the vegan aspect. But I get more geeked out and energized talking about the health aspects.
yes.
And the vegan aspects are great. And I have a series, Veganuary, and we're not real hardcore activists, Lisa and I, but we do talk about veganism quite a bit, and that's an important one. I feel like that's another one that we need to embody and understand the aspects of these concepts of what veganism really means, because I feel like really we all, like, the traffic was stopped to help the geese walk across the road,
Yep.
and the police officers are heroes, and yet they go home and eat chicken. It's like, man, we have a long ways to go to really kind of make that connection.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
that's where the food comes in. We realize, hey, look, you're gonna have your bases covered as long as you're not being too silly about it, tracking what you eat, eating
Hmm.
enough, right? Eating with the seasons. Some people need to eat with the seasons. Yeah, it's fascinating. Val, this is so great. Definitely love your energy and the work that you're doing out there. And we'll stay connected. I got your email. We'll stay connected through Instagram. And for anybody who's watching here, be sure to go check out Val, because she's another one of those brilliant people that's helping people out there. So yeah, so good.
And thank you so much, Nate. Greatly appreciate it. And say hello to your beautiful wife.
I will definitely. Well, stay warm over there, and hopefully you get a good night rest tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Bye.